I listened to the audiobook of Feel Good Productivity by Abdaal like 2 months ago, but I never got around to doing a book review. But I did take notes on the chapters that stood out to me, so I'm just gonna go through that now. Even though it's been 2 months and I don't remember all of it, I think I took good enough notes to give you a good enough idea of what stood out to me that hopefully you will want to read it too after watching this video. In chapter one of the things that he talked about was incorporating the element of play or the spirit of play into our work and not taking ourselves too seriously and being willing to try new things, experiment with different ways of doing things, and really just not be so hunkered down in this productivity's hard, and really letting ourselves experience and explore a more playful, creative approach to productivity. Chapter 2 talked a bit about empowerment and realizing that you have the power to change your life and it's ultimately up to you, and believing in yourself, believing that you can do something or you can figure out how to do something, and recognizing that you won't always have control over your circumstances and the outcomes. So just taking control of where you can and taking responsibility for that. It's not like exerting your power over other people, but it's like recognizing the power and the influence that you have over your own life and the way that you do things. Chapter 3 talks about leaning into people and being willing to ask for help when we can't figure it out on our own, and not just sealing ourselves off from any collaboration, but really using the people in our work environment or our social life as assets and treating them as comrades and not competitors. In chapter 4, he talked about procrastination and how we often treat the symptoms of procrastination, but we don't really address the root causes, which often have more to do with our mood, or we know that if we do this thing, it will make us feel a certain way, and we don't want to really address that. Like if some piece of work is really hard, we won't want to start on it because we know that it's going to be hard and we're probably going to get frustrated. So we'll just procrastinate that because we don't want those negative feelings. But when we can attack the root of it and be like, okay, why is this going to be frustrating for me, and try and fix that part and make it easier in some way so that it's not hopefully as frustrating as we think it will be, then that can really help us. And he also talked about, you probably have heard about SMART goals, but he says, how about NICE goals? Near term, input-based, controllable, and energizing. Those are the kind of goals that we can relatively quickly achieve and get that sense of victory from accomplishing, and that will energize us to be able to move on to bigger and harder goals. Chapter 5 talks about fear, which kind of goes hand in hand with the procrastination topic of if you're afraid of something that you know you need to do, you will procrastinate doing it. So courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to still take action in the presence of fear. And that often starts with addressing why we're scared and figuring out a way to reduce that fear or address it and calm those fears by telling ourselves the truth, because we might be believing a lie about what we're not wanting to do. It might not actually be as scary as we think it is, and having a bias to action, if we actually start on it, we might see that it's not as scary as we think it is, and then the fear will usually melt away. He encourages us to ask, will this matter in 10 weeks? Will this matter in 10 years? And if we're scared about what other people are thinking, just take a moment to realize that other people do not think about you as much as you think they think about you. He has this sentence in there that says, we are a self-conscious species, but we're not a judgmental one. In chapter 6, he talks about inertia and how if you aren't keeping promises to yourself, it's easy to keep not keeping promises to yourself. But if you're actively working towards things, it's easy to keep working towards things. And I found this in my own life. If I am struggling with a lack of self-discipline in one area of my life, if I start habits in other areas that require self-discipline, that can often bring self-discipline into this area as well. In chapter 7, he talks about how burnout is not exhaustion. You're not necessarily overcommitting yourself or doing too much. It's more of a mood problem. It's more that you're doing too many things that don't energize you anymore. Maybe they did at one point in time, but they don't anymore. Or maybe you started doing them because people told you you should, but they don't actually bring you joy. And so now you're feeling burnt out because you didn't choose a path that is something that you genuinely enjoy. But there are a couple of different types of burnout. And so in chapter 8, he talks about rest depletion burnout, where you just genuinely are overbooking yourself and not taking quality rest that is actually refueling you and re-energizing you to be able to come back and keep going. And then chapter 9 is talking about alignment burnout, which I kind of already touched on, where you are genuinely doing something that is not aligned with what you enjoy doing anymore. And this can be kind of daunting because you might have to completely change careers or change your physical location or so many different things, so many big changes that might be scary. But sometimes you don't have to make big changes. Sometimes you can just take little actions, little steps to bring your life back into alignment. It might be things outside of work that you can do that bring those extra elements that are missing from your current life in and help you feel more aligned with your own values and what you want from life. So that's just a basic rundown of some notes that I took on the 9 chapters. I think that was all the chapters, but I don't remember. Overall, this book was just a feel-good productivity book. Like, it was a personal development book that did not feel like it was preaching to me. It did not feel like it was condemning me for any choices that I might be not making or making. It honestly just felt like someone being like, hey, we're too hard on ourselves in this personal development space. Let's take a step back and take it a little easier on ourselves and have fun with this instead of just like putting on all this pressure to be the best version of ourselves or whatever mantra you subscribe to in the personal development space. And it was a really refreshing read, honestly. Well, I listened to it, which I thought was so much better because, you know, Ali Abdaal has an accent and I love accents, and listening to the author themselves narrate their own work is just special. So I listened to it. I would highly suggest listening to it if you have access to audiobooks. And honestly, I think I'm gonna listen to it again because I need to remember more of what he said and soak it in and really embrace that overall concept that he was trying to get across of let's take it a little easier on ourselves, have a little fun with it, don't take yourself so seriously, and just have some feel-good productivity.